Fight back with MELTREK. The war of the minds, they want control of the masses. And Common Core, they dumb us down in the classes. Without knowledge, we can't gain access. Build with the elders, take notes and write classes. We keep whining on the block, how it's gonna stop? Let's start supporting our own, make their supply drop. We buy stocks, then we buy blocks. Cause we know the truth and we tuned in to dr.maat.msu.
I don't know what happened, family. A BB to me, a BB Fahodiye. Peace to all of my truth seekers and truth speakers. Welcome to another Truth to Power Talk with your sister, Dr. Maat. Thank you for joining another powerful discussion. And tonight I have with me another powerful guest, but he is no stranger to the community. Baba Ashra Kwesi. How are you doing tonight, Baba?
Oh, Santi sister, I'm still rising like Ra to live again, as I always say. A BB Fahodiye.
BB Fahodiye, Baba. You're looking good, Baba, and you're looking good. You sound good, sound strong, and it's a pleasure having you back on this platform. I believe this is maybe your third time on the platform, and Baba, it's always a pleasure, engaging with you. Like I tell folks, I say Baba is a wealth of wisdom, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of wisdom, just a wealth of experience, Baba. You've seen so much and done so much, Bob. And so we appreciate you, we love you, and we value you. Family, take a moment out right now to thumb up this discussion. Thumb up this discussion. You know how the YouTube algorithm works. The more you engage the video, you share it, you like it, you comment under it, the more it begins to circulate on social media. So take time out, thumb up the video. Also, family, share this video. We want to each one teach one. And in 2023, you know how we can do that? By simply sharing the discussion. So if you're on Facebook, family, post the link. If you're on Twitter, tweet the link. If you're on Instagram, put us in your stories. Say Dr. Maat and Baba Ashra Kwesi are live. And tonight we are going to be talking about the real identity and history of Queen Cleopatra. Right? You all know about Queen Cleopatra. And if you didn't, I know you know about it because you heard that Jada Pinkett did a docu-series on Netflix, and white folks got upset and they're having a fit. But then you have African scholars, they got upset. And so anyway, Baba's here today to give us the real deal about Queen Hatshepsut. All right. And so make sure, family, also, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, be sure to head on over to Dr. Oya Edwa Maat and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that whenever I go live, you will be notified. Also, family, and I'm going to show this flyer as soon as Baba finishes his presentation, because right now I actually have his presentation in the cut, but I'm going to show a flyer. Please make sure, family, that you're in the building on Saturday, September the 23rd from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. All right. King Simon presents, and it says, and Kemet New Productions presents Ashra Kwesi and Mary Ra. I like to say Baba Ashra Kwesi and Mama Mary Ra. So they're going to be in the building, family, at 958 Housley Street near Broadway in Brooklyn, New York on Saturday, September the 23rd from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the topics are African civilization, Netflix misinformation about Cleopatra, and more. So family, make sure that you make sure that you show up and show out for Brother King Simon and Baba Ashra and Mama Mary Ra Kwesi. As always, they're going to be dropping a lot of powerful, and transformative information. So family, make sure that you're in the building. I'm going to make sure that I post this flyer, show you this flyer after Baba finish presenting. And I'm also going to post the flyer on all of my social media platforms. So anyway, Baba, this really kind of came full circle because I remember, when I reached out to you, this was probably around the time that Jada Pinkett released her docu-series. I think she's doing like this whole Queens of Africa. I know that the first one was about Queen Nzinga, and then she dropped another one about, Queen Cleopatra. And I have reached out to you after I saw the trailer, and I said, Baba, I don't know about this. I said, Baba, I'm looking at her and looking at reading things, articles about, people who saw it and their opinions of it. And I said, Baba, I don't know. I said, maybe you may have to come on, and edify the people about, the history and the identity of Queen Cleopatra. And you and I talked, and we tried to coordinate a date and time, but I know that you and Mama were extremely busy with your Kemet trip, your trip to Kemet that you all have been doing, Baba, for how many years, I believe? Oh, I'm sorry, Baba. You're muted. How many
Oh,
years, Baba?
42 years. 42. Can you hear me
40.
now?
I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, yeah,
42 years.
42 years, right. It would have been, 43. Yeah, if it, well, we didn't go during COVID 2020. Yeah, 42 years. I can't believe it myself. It's been a time warp.
Wow, Baba. I mean, that's just amazing. And I remember when you came on this platform, the first time, you talked about how I believe the first time you went over, there with Dr. Ben, and that
Right.
that,
Yeah,
yeah,
1981, right.
and that you studied, right under Dr. Ben for, I think, did you tell me 14 years, 15 years?
14 years apprenticeship under Dr. Ben. Yep, 14 years. When I met him at Long Beach State back in 1973.
Mhm.
And at that time, I did not hear a lot of information that he was disseminating at that time. I was in the political struggle at that time. And he gave a very powerful lecture that day. And I asked Dr. Ben after the lecture, I stopped him coming down the aisle. Can you prove what you said here today? He said, young man, I can take you back and show you. And he said, but above all, we need young people like you to go back and do the field research. And he walked away, excuse me. And that started my dream to return back to Africa, even though at that time, strongly into jazz. I'm wearing John Coltrane right now. And I would actually purchase albums based on the cover of the album, if it had Africa on it. Lee Morgan, with his album, he was stretched out like Haru Akit that the Greeks called the Sphinx. I said, boy, this brother got something powerful. Pharrell Sanders and so many, Leon Thomas, as I said, John Coltrane. These are the brothers who, through their music, I listened to their music. That's what actually got me into really dreaming about returning back to Africa. And then, of course, it all came together by hearing Dr. Ben. And I made that journey in 1981. So it's been all these years. And like I said, haven't missed the years with the exception of COVID.
Ashe, Baba. And you, I mean, and not only, I mean, what's amazing to me about your story and Mama Mary Kwesi's story is that you all met. Didn't you all meet?
You're right. We met.
You met on a trip with Dr. Ben, right? On
Her family came on the tour when I was working with Dr. Ben, working under Dr. Ben. Dr. Ben did the lectures in the hotel, and I was in the field and making sure I pointed out things that he wanted the group to know. And so in 1992, her family came on the trip, but it was in 1991, going through some serious changes in my life, and it was in 1991 I walked through the greatest temple on the planet Earth, and that is Amen-Ipit-Asut, the most select and holy of places, and walking among those 134 columns and asking for a queen to be on my side. And it was the next year her family came on the trip, and it was the following year, 1993, Dr. Ben did our marriage ceremony in the very temple I asked for her. Wow. So people say, wow, I've been praying and praying, and my prayers haven't been answered. And I always say, we might be calling on the wrong God. I called on.
Come on.
I've given praise to thee. I've given homage to thee, and now my enemies all around me. I need a queen to be on my side. And we've traveled the world together and lectured together and conducting tours together and doing Egypt. And back in the day, back in the 90s, we were doing Egypt and Ghana. And then we started doing Egypt and Ethiopia, Egypt in the summer and Ethiopia in the winter. And unfortunately, because of the political instability in Ethiopia right now, we have to stop Ethiopia for now. But we're still doing our educational tours to Kemet. And so, sorry that we, even though we had that schedule, it's a really tight time. We actually stopped lecturing around April and May, because we have such large groups, and we're honored that many brothers and sisters, return back with us. And this summer, 238 people, I think it was, split up in with two different groups. So we have to do group 1 and 2, and we've been doing that for about 10 years now. Having group 1 and group 2. So we put all of our energy to make sure that everything is perfect for brothers and sisters. So many people call me around April, May, and June to do lectures, but unfortunately, to give a quality level that we do it, we have to shut down on everything, because we take care of everything.
Yeah, And Baba, I completely understood that when
Mhm.
when I called you and you tried to fit me in. You really tried. You said, okay, I can do it on this day. And then when the day come, you sent me the message. You said, I just can't do it. I tried. And so I completely understand. I mean,
Yeah,
238
you got
people.
238
You know what I
people.
mean? That's
Everybody's calling about everything under
everything.
you can
Exactly.
imagine. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you got,
And yeah,
yeah,
and talking with the people over in Egypt and getting this right, because we want this, we run it like a well-oiled machine, so we want everything to be perfect. So, our reputation is a very organized trip, and, we want to keep it that way. And the only way you can do it is give it 100% attention.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, family, I'm going to drop the link to Baba and Mama's. It says right here, Kemet Kemet New, Black People's Production. So this is the trip right here. And you all went, it says July the 8th through the 22nd, and then you went July the 24th through the 7th. I think that's what it
Right.
says right
We
here.
won't have our new tour out until late October. That's when or early November, once we get our prices from our ground operators and get all that together. And that's when we open up the new brochures and have them out for our next journey. Mm-hmm.
Okay, beautiful. So, family, right now, I am going to drop the link to Baba Ashra Kwesi's website in
No,
the
it's not.
chat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also, family, going to put it on the screen. Okay. If you're interested in doing a deep dive study, about Kemet, and you want to get all of Baba and Mama's lectures, okay, and you want to know all about their tours, visit www.kemetnew.com. It's on the screen, family. It's on the screen. www.kemetnew, Kemet, new, NU.com. All right, family. If you want to know more, Baba, I have to get over there with you all. I got to get over there. I had the pleasure of going with Baba Tony Browder. I went with him about 2 years ago. This December will be 2 years. I went on his 2021 trip, and so I got to make my way. I got to make my way there with you too, Baba, you and Mama, and experience Kemet with you too. So I do plan on being in the number one day soon. And family, I hope that you will join me. I hope that you will join me. Make sure that you're in the building. So that's why we couldn't talk about the docu-series back then, because Baba was busy. So then I got a phone call from Brother King Solomon. He said, look, I got Baba and Mama. They're coming to New York. He said, I want you to bring Baba on the platform, spread the word, and let the folks know that they're going to be in the building in New York. Okay, again, family, on Saturday, September the 23rd from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. to talk about ancient civilizations, right? And in the Netflix misinformation about Cleopatra and more.
So that's going to be the tail end of the presentation too, by the way. Yeah, it's not going to be the presentation.
That's not the presentation. Right. I got you, Baba. I got you. And so, family, when, so again, this thing came full circle. So I said, sure, King Simon, good looking. And so Baba and I coordinated the date, and here he is. So anyway, Baba, I remember when we spoke on the telephone, you said something that was very powerful. I mean, you always say powerful things, but it was something that you said that was really powerful. I said, Baba, what, how do you feel about this whole Cleopatra thing? And you said, well, I knew it was coming back around, right? You said every 20 years, there's a new generation. And you said, and when that happens, you said they already know this. They already know that every 20 years, here comes a new generation, right? And so if you want to control what the new generation thinks or feels about things, then you start throwing things at them, right? And they don't know no better, because especially if they're not connected to someone in the previous generation who is schooling them about things, then they're just believing whatever they're being exposed to. And that's exactly what's happening right now. A lot of our young people are not connected, and that's another discussion that we have to have, that disconnect between generations, right? We definitely need to talk about that, because you do have a lot of young people that aren't connected to the previous generation. So all they know is what they see on social media, or what they learn in school, or what they're watching on Netflix and Hulu and some of the other streaming platforms. And so again, it's important to read, to study, to be connected to, our African-centered scholars and educators, right? So that when people are showing you things, misinformation and disinformation about our history, you can identify it as such and say, no, that's not accurate. I watched the documentary and I understand the storyline and what they were trying to convey, but that is not accurate because you know. And so anyway, I thought that was very powerful when you said that to me. Every 20 years it's the same stuff. So you said that's why I purposely kept my Newsweek article when they showed Cleopatra on it. And what did they ask you, Baba?
Well,
what did it say on the article? It say
well, I'm going to show it later on, but it's Afrocentrism was Cleopatra Black, and that was 32 years ago. I have it. It'll be in the talk when we come to it. But yes, that was 32 years ago. In fact, Dr. Ben even told me one time, he said, Kwesi, you know, you're going to live long enough where a lot of things are going to continue to repeat itself, one generation after the other. And I forgot exactly what was going on. I think it was that magazine, I think, about the Cleopatra thing. And he said, yes, I think he even mentioned that 20 years, ago that thing came back up again. Wow. You see, so again, we have to understand that this is just propaganda, again, to brainwash the people, to lock them into the deification of Western civilization. In fact, that's what you have to get in school to get your degree. You have to take Western civilization. So the fear is that when we start to talk about African history, we're dealing with thousands of years before Europeans were even on the scene, and when they were barbarians. And this is from their own history when they were in caves. And this is from their own history. They themselves even mentioned that time period. So this is, but Cleopatra, the thing that I don't like about is that because of the movies, because of the Liz Taylor and all of that, that's the only time we know. We lock into that and we try to hold on to that time period. And the Europeans throw that time period up to us because they were there then. Okay, they were the Greeks, they were the Ptolemies. They were on the scene at that time when Alexander came in 32 BCE. And at that time, coming in as a mercenary to fight the Persians. And then, of course, if you got a mercenary fighting for you, what are they going to do? They took over. After his death, that started the Ptolemaic line. They were there for 300 years. That's 300 years. So keep in mind, as I said, that when they come in, when the army comes in, they don't come in with their wives. All right. So yes, when they came in, rape was taking place when soldiers come in. Women are raped, and all these type of things take place. So if we want to think of Cleopatra, she was closer to this time, okay, than she was to ancient Kemet. You see, so we have to think about that. She was closer to the Western time than she was to ancient Kemet. And unfortunately, we don't know about the great queens of ancient Kemet. We don't know about Amenkera-Nitakerti, okay, that the Greeks refer to as Nitocris, okay, of the 6th dynasty. Okay, I mean, these are early periods, okay, so Neferu. And in fact, this is Mary Ra's area, okay, that she's going to be dealing with the African goddesses, which is the spiritual foundation of ancient Kemet. Which of course she'll be dealing with the African queens as well. Okay, so this is thousands of years before the Cleopatra era. But by them putting that up there, it presupposes that all of Egypt was white. And that's the projection that came out of that whole uproar, okay, over the Netflix. And they had all these Cleopatras. It played all these lily white Cleopatras as it played. But now we have a sister who plays Cleopatra. And now everybody gets up in uproar. And we have to keep in mind that this is orchestrated. These are European white supremacist Egyptologists. Okay, keep in mind, Egyptology was started by Europeans. Okay, it started by when Napoleon came in 1798, okay, AD, and started the whole Egyptology during this time. And pretty much they wanted to control the history. They wanted to control the narrative. They wanted to make it white at that time. Prior to that, they were destroying a lot of Kemet. And even during that time, they were defacing the monuments and saying a lot of negative things. And for those who did not see the show that I had with you on Kevin Hart, remember the Kevin Hart show we did?
Yes, absolutely.
And I showed a lot of the visual documentation, and I showed a lot of the things that they were saying about Kemet and Webster's dictionary when they were calling Egypt the big N word. So what were they saying then? Now, all of a sudden, it's a white civilization now. All right. So again, this is all part of the Hegel, which at this time when it was late 17, early 1800s, Hegel, who at this time said that Egypt was part of the European world. And that's where they wanted to keep the history locked into the European world. And most of the information that we saw, okay, on all this stuff coming out of Egypt, and a lot of this was coming from Lower Egypt. A lot of it was coming from Alexandria. Alexandria is still pretty much a Greco-Jewish European city. I mean, if you go to Alexandria, you may think you're in New York. All right. I mean, they put that spin on it from the time of when the Greeks were there. Only when you go into Upper Egypt, way in the south, referred to as Upper Egypt, because the flow of the Nile is coming from the Great Lakes region and flowing down into what they refer to as Lower Egypt, where the Nile empties out into the Mediterranean from the Delta. But it's here, when you look at Upper Egypt, Cleopatra, their association with Upper Egypt was very distant. Okay, even during her time, the Greeks did not make a lot of, even though you have the usurpers, okay, the Greeks who were usurpers of the throne of ancient Kemet, and they had the builders, the Kemetic builders. The Greeks didn't build anything. They got Kemetic builders to build for them onto the temple. They fell in love with Kemet. They fell in love with the spirituality of ancient Kemet. They fell in love with many of the spiritual ideas, and many of the ideas that we see in Western religion, and many ideas that we see in Greek philosophy. A lot of these things came up out of ancient Kemet spiritual shashada that the Greeks referred to as the mysterion, or mystery system. That became a lot that we see a lot in Western academia. So, of course, the fear is that when we look, and many of us, and through the European Western, not ours, but their Western civilization, and you get Pythagorean theorem. So this is all about still the deification of Europeans. But what happens when you start to talk about great grand masters thousands of years before some Pythagoras, as we've mentioned on many occasions, like the Grand Master himself, Imhotep, who was a multi-genius who built the world's first stone building, long before some Greeks. And I remember one year where a young man who came on a trip with us, and he talked about how when he came to the classroom, the teacher would always put up some Greek philosopher, and the students would always have to pick somebody that would predate the one he had. So he watched this for about a week, and then he went up to the chalkboard and wrote Imhotep 5,000 years ago, and said, "Know thyself." And that was the end. The teacher didn't want to go any further. You see, he didn't want to talk about his little program, because who are they going to pick?
Right.
When you say Imhotep, all right. Yeah. Right. So, and that was the end of that right there. So we got to understand that this thing is bigger than what we think is going on. The European Egyptologists, keep in mind, they're the ones who are now trying to control the narrative. Keep in mind that Anne Roth, she was a European Egyptologist at Howard University. And we're talking about, this is back in the early 90s. And she wrote this paper, and she pretty much said in that paper what their objectives and what they wanted to do in terms of how to educate African Americans on, as she put it, our Egyptology. Okay, which she's right, their Egyptology, and how that we've got to control the narrative, all right, and not let the Afrocentrism, as she was referring to it in her paper, take over our Egyptology. Okay, so I mean, she wrote a long paper on this. So keep in mind, of course, now you got these archaeological teams who are all white. Okay, archaeological teams, all of them, okay, who are connected to European Western universities, whether that be America or whether that be in Europe. That's the only way you're going to have digs. Okay, you got to have a connection to one of these universities and connected to one of these European Egyptologists.
All right. Okay,
so they are the ones who pretty much want to now take control, all right, of the total history of Egypt, and to make sure that it's locked in the minds of the people. So this was a worldwide propaganda that took place. Keep in mind that news of Netflix, okay, it went out all over the world. Okay, it went out, it was aired in the Australian news, of course, in all over Europe. It went all over the world. So in the mindset and the game that was played, that it presupposed that all of ancient Egypt was white. And that was the projection they wanted to have, because they want the history of ancient Egypt, and they want it to be white.
White, absolutely.
They don't want it to be African at all. Even though, as I've showed on the last time I was on the show, Ra Haruam Akhet, that the Greeks refer to as the Sphinx, is Voni, who gave the account in his books, Ruin of the Empire, looked up at that colossal, and anybody else who would go over there and look at that colossal and see the phenotype clearly would see that this is an African face of the largest colossal and oldest colossal on the planet Earth. No European can look up at that colossal and say that this is a white man's face.
No,
Okay.
no,
None.
no, no.
All right. You see, so this is the thing that we have to look at, and especially also looking at all the other colossal statues that we see over there. And in fact, when Zadi Hawass, who's been in the forefront in denying the African history, and even his team, all right, his team, when you look at his team in Upper Egypt that he has, and from the Valley of the Kings, any one of them that would get stopped in the United States, okay, by the police would be looked at as a black man.
Right.
From Zadi Hawass's team. But he's been in the forefront trying to deny the African origin. As I said before, you can look at Asia, okay, and look at all the people there as Asians, and you can look at Europe and see all the people in Europe as being Europeans, no matter which shade of white they are or which shade of Asians they are. They're still Asians. They're still white. When it comes to Africa, then it's got to be something else. Only on the African continent do you see that. All right. And when we talk about Egypt, this is a part of the spiritual system of Africa. It didn't start in Egypt. All right. It started in the Kui land. It started in the Taneta land. It started in the original holy place. And these are some of the things that we're going to get into when I come to New York and lecture, and to get deep into this and show how ancient Kemet, okay, it showed its origins. It showed its origins from the little people that they refer to as the Twa, that the Europeans have given derogatory name Pygmies. Now, Gene Hallett, who wrote his book Pygmies of Kitabu, he literally put in there, now that they see that when Kemet related to its beginning of these first people called the Twa, who they're referred to as best in Egypt, Gene Hallett now is saying that the little Twa that they refer to as Pygmies are Black Caucasians, if you can believe that, are Caucasians. All right.
Wow.
So because no matter where you look at the alabasters, you see these little Twa. These are the first people. The Nile is the fallopian tube. The Nile is the beginning. The Nile is the Nile doesn't start in Egypt. The Nile doesn't start in Europe. The Nile doesn't start in Asia. The Nile starts in the Great Lakes regions of Africa, around Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya. There, the Lake Nyanza is called the colonial name Lake Victoria. Okay, and there's a book called Dirt, and they said in the book that they call it Lake Victoria because she needed a bath, and but that's what they said in the book. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So again, we see that origin. That's why I refer to the Nile as the fallopian tube. So these spiritual systems and everything that you see, the Zoop types and everything that you see on these monuments and temples, they're not coming from Europe. From that empirical observation of our ancestors of Mut-Netchet, referred to now as Mother Nature, they observed from their keen observation. And Mary Ra's going to get deep into that in her lecture, by the way, okay, when she deals with the goddesses and showing how our ancestors observed nature to come up with so many spiritual ideas, as well as myself, okay, and showing, and these are the things that are not shown, okay, these are the things that are not revealed, okay, all the representations that you see, not only of the phenotype of the Africans, but even the zoomorphic forms, okay, or the animal forms that they were using on the monuments. So that means that, this took thousands of years to develop. But again, it's sad that we, deal with this Cleopatra thing. Like I said, that's all we know. But I can show a few slides here.
Oh, yeah.
We can get into some of this because I can go on and on and on with this.
And I can listen to you,
Physical documentation, images shape our reality. Because keep in mind that, the education of the Greeks, they started, and they're, started from ancient Kemet. Okay, now called Egypt today. So I'm going to start the sharing of these slides here.
Baba, you just stopped sharing it.
I did the wrong thing.
Baba, look, it was already set up. All you had to do was click to the next with the show. Like it was there.
How do we get back there?
Okay, so click present again.
Okay, I got to come out of this. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with StreamYard.
Yeah, no problem, Baba. So click present.
1 second.
Okay.
Okay, where do we have at present?
It's at the bottom.
Yeah, I'll get right at it. Here we go. Oh, share screen.
Yes.
There we go. And Windows.
Yep.
And there we go.
All right.
Share. 1, 2, 3.
All right. And just go ahead and throw it in present, Baba, and we're good to go.
Okay, so, okay, here we go. There we go. Technology, it is what it is. Okay, so
It happens,
so
Baba.
again,
oh, you just unshared it again,
what
Baba.
did I do? Well, I mean, I
Yeah,
didn't
so
touch anything.
yeah, so once you have it in present mode, down the bottom left corner, it's an arrow that you push when you want to go to the next slide, but that's all you have to do.
Okay, let's do that again.
Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to see. I moved the mouse instead of hitting the computer.
Yeah, if you hit the computer, you just hit enter, and it'll go to the next slide.
Okay, so I got to go back to present again, huh?
Yeah, you have to go back through the steps again. And family, right now, while Baba's getting his slides together to present, make sure that you thumb up the video, family. Thumb up the video. Also share the video. Share the video, family. If you have a family group chat or a friends group chat,
okay, here
copy
we are.
the link. Copy the link. If you have a family group chat or a friends group chat, family, make sure that you copy the link and throw it in your chat. All right. So let's look at this let's get this good old information. All right, Baba, your slides are showing. You have the floor.
Okay. Okay, good. So I'll make sure I don't hit that mouse then. I just have to hit it on the computer. So again, like I was saying before, these early Greeks who came in, their education came directly from Kemet. When the first Greeks came into Kemet, Kemet was already thousands of years old. Let's be clear on that. And in fact, I have Homer up here around the 8th century BCE. Can everybody see Homer?
Yeah, we see everything that you see.
And when I say BCE, I'm speaking of before the Christian era, okay? Because it's an era before the Christian era, okay? Who's the author of the Iliad and the Odyssey, okay? Dated around the 8th century BCE. Now, this is the Europeans' oldest literature, the oldest Western literature. This is Homer, okay, during this particular period. Now, Kemet is already thousands of years old. You're talking about ancient papyruses going back to Ptah-hotep. Some of the oldest books in the world, Kajimi, no Greeks yet during this time of Kajimi and also Ptah-hotep. We're talking about over 4,000 years ago. And this is one of the areas that they don't want us to know about, okay, to get deep into the Kemetic history. And then, of course, want people to think that this is a white civilization. So let's go to this vase. Now, this is a libation bowl. This is a libation bowl that the Greeks gave back to Africa. In the Iliad and the Odyssey, where they stated that they had to return back, they were referring to Ethiopia, because at one time when the Greeks said Ethiopia, we're not talking about, they were looking at just the country as Ethiopia as we see it today. They're looking at Egypt, Sudan, all that area they refer to as Ethiopia. And this is a libation bowl. So they gave a libation back, okay, to Africa, where they got the knowledge from. In the Iliad and the Odyssey, as they said, they had to return back to Ethiopia, okay, to replenish our ideas. Now, what's on these heads of these libation bowls? Look at these heads on this libation bowl. Do these look like Greeks?
No.
These are African heads on this libation bowl. It's during this time that when we see after the Greeks, the early Greeks who came in and they started to study at this library called the Alexandria Library. It's called the Alexandria Library because it's named after Alexander himself around 332 BCE, who came in as a conqueror mercenary to fight the Persians at this time. This is where the Greeks started to study and plunder many of the libraries of ancient Kemet. We're talking about the ancient Netherhets, okay, the divine houses. It's now called the temples of ancient Kemet. There you had thousands of scrolls of libraries, but Alexander wanted this knowledge to be housed in one place. But even though he never saw the library, but it was Sutter, his first general, Sutter I, who wanted to keep this dream alive of Alexander by having all the knowledge of Kemet stored in one place. And this started the Alexandria Library. Pythagoras, but keep in mind, these Greeks are also Pythagoras. They're before Alexander, by the way. This slide was out of place here. They're before Alexander, but most of us know Pythagoras because of our Western education that we got. The Pythagorean theorem is named after him. It's in his name. So by the fact that it's called Pythagorean theorem, then we assume that he started this theorem, even though Pythagoras spent 22 years studying in Kemet, even though he never finished becoming a grand master. What is a grand master? That's 40 years. He never finished total initiation of 40 years. But there, Pythagoras took this knowledge that he got from 22 years of study in Kemet and brought that back to Greece. And this is what started what is known as Greek philosophy. Keep in mind that Homer was already studying ancient Kemet even before him. And this is what started them to start the study at this time, ancient Kemetic knowledge that our ancestors go back thousands of years. But the sad thing is that we have organizations today, and some of the organizations like the Masonic lodges that we see have what is known as the Pythagorean order. So again, they're deifying these Europeans. As I always say, why don't they have the Knights of Pythagoras? Okay, they have the Knights of Pythagoras, because again, we don't know the history. Some of us do not know the history of ancient Kemet, because if we knew the history of ancient Kemet, then we wouldn't have organizations deifying Pythagoras and calling it Knights of Pythagoras.
Absolutely.
Pythagoras got his education directly from ancient Kemet, from Kemetic Kari-Hebs. Kari-Hebs, they were known as the high priest of ancient Kemet. This is where ancient Kemet, it was taught by these grand masters. Here, these black priests of ancient Kemet. Keep in mind, even Herodotus, who was a Greek historian himself, gave a he's having an eyewitness account. Herodotus, he went to Egypt, observed the people, and said that they had black skin and woolly hair, or put it as he put it, burnt skin and woolly hair. Now, this is Herodotus giving a description during his time around 450 BCE when he came into Egypt during his time. And this vase is during the time of Pythagoras. Now, look at the hearts at the top. Now, those hearts are on this base of the Greek base here, and showing the love, okay, for black people in this vase right here. Now, you got a black head on one side, and you got a Greek head on the other side. Now, why would the Greeks make a vase like this? They made a vase like this because this is where they're getting the knowledge from. They're getting the knowledge from Africa. And they have hearts up there showing the love, because the Greeks fell in love with Kemet. They fell in love, as I said in the beginning, with the knowledge of ancient Kemet, and fell in love with the spiritual system of salvation and resurrection that became part of even the Christian religion as it was passed down, where the Byzantine Roman Christians took it and became part of the Christian faith. But that's another story. So when you look at this Greek vase, this is Zeus, and Zeus is jet black. Now, why do they have Zeus as jet black? Because when the Greeks came into Kemet, they were introduced to a spiritual deity, or spiritual god, as they refer to it today, God. And who were they introduced to? They were introduced to Amen. So here in Greece, he was called Zeus Amen. The Romans called him Jupiter Amen. But where are they getting the names? Where are they taking this from ancient Kemet? Zeus is jet black because it's taken off from Amen that you see right here. Amen, during this time, our ancestors' spiritual concept of God at this time. Amen during the time of the Middle Kingdom. We're talking about over 4,000 years ago. Amen is jet black. Now, here's a jet black spiritual deity of ancient Kemet, where our ancestors at this time were worshiping the spiritual god Amen. Now, keep in mind, Amen represents the invisible spirit that's in all of us, the invisible spirit that permeates throughout all the universe. Amen is in a what is known as an anthropomorphic or human form to represent this blackness, this invisible energy that now even physicists are even talking about invisible blackness, invisible energy that holds the universe together, and the blackness that's all around us, even me right now, that we can't see. This is even what physicists are talking about. So our ancestors, what they did was anthropomorphize it in human form. And this is what they did a lot. Even Shu, when we think of air, Shu is in an anthropomorphic form for us to understand air. So they humanized it for us to understand it. But yet air is not in the human form, correct?
Correct.
So, but it's all around us. So the same thing with this blackness of Amen. representing the visible spirit. And Amen is all through the Bible, especially in Timothy, where it speaks of Amen representing the spirit, the invisible energy itself. But Amen is who Alexander, he came in. When he came in, he wanted to be a Sarah. And what is a Sarah? He wanted to be the son of Amen. He wanted to be a son of Amen, known as Sarah or Sarah Amen. And during this time, okay, here we see Alexander here with a Nemes crown during 332 BCE when he came into Kemet during this time, as I said, to fight the Persians who were on the throne, reaping havoc on Kemet at this time. But it was Alexander who came in as a mercenary. But of course, if you have somebody fighting for you at this time, what are they going to do when they kick out those who are already there, like the Persians? Okay, they're going to take over. And that's what Alexander II, okay, who called himself the son of Amen. And during this time, calling himself the son of Amen, even going to an area called Siwa, all right, where he was initiated into the craft. And during this time that Amen, where he was saying that he claimed himself to be the son of Amen, and even putting on a Nemes crown that you see right here. But keep in mind, he also took the form of Nectanebo II, because Cleopatra, okay, nor Alexander, they were not the original rulers. They're usurpers of the throne, keep in mind. But Nectanebo II was the last Kemetic Nisu, or king of ancient Kemet. All right. So during this time, Kemet was not ruled by indigenous or the African Kemetic rulers at this time. So now this is on back of one of the temples of Amen-ipit-Resut. All right. And that is adjacent to Amen-ipit-Resut. That temple is a smaller temple called Luxor today. It's all the way in the back. And this is where Alexander had himself carved on the temple, on back of what is known as the Ankh-Manu. The Ankh-Manu is the holies of holies. And he's worshiping the god Amen. Now, this is a black god that they're worshiping. In fact, let me just show him, put him right here. This is who Alexander is worshiping, a jet black god at this time. This is where we see that Amen was transformed and transferred into Amen Zeus, or Amen Jupiter, even when the Romans came on the scene. And when the Byzantine Romans, okay, who were establishing, it's still the Romans, but they're establishing the Catholicism through Constantine, this is where he still remains Amen. He's not Amen Zeus or Amen Jupiter, he's Amen. So when you say Amen at the end of your prayers, this is the origin of it, where the Byzantine Romans kept it in their prayers. So every time when people end their prayers, they're still saying Amen, the very black god that they were introduced to when they came into Kemet. A black god, not a white god. Okay. So these are the black divinities, or the black deities that they were seeing, the black images that they were seeing of the spiritual realm, or whether it's on the Valley of the Kings that you see there. All right. So the representation when Constantine, keep in mind, when Constantine came on the scene, I'm getting ahead of myself here. When he came on the scene, this is where they were starting to establish a Western version and a corruption of ancient African spirituality in the formulation of the European Western Christianity. Now, before I get into some of these things here, let me move on here. But I wanted to show clearly, carved in stone, that I refer to as the books in stone, here the Neterhets, or the divine houses. Okay, Alexander is worshiping Amen right here on the temple. Now, as I said, after his death, we see the Ptolemies took over. This started the plunder of ancient Kemet. But even when Alexander, when he came into Kemet, he got Aristotle to plunder temples up and down the Nile. Dr. George M. James, in his book, Stolen Legacy, elaborates that and writes on that very extensively. But here we see the Ptolemaic rule around 323 to 30 BCE. We're talking about 300 years. And not in Egypt, because Egypt is, in fact, a Greek name. Okay, the name was called Kemet. Egypt gets its name from the ancient city of Menhoood that you see right there, that the Greeks called Memphis. Interesting enough, Memphis, Tennessee is even named after that. But Menhoood, the temples are no longer there because the invasions that came from the north, all these temples were destroyed. The only thing that we see intact there are the Murs, or known as the pyramids by the Greeks. And those structures were built for eternity, but all the temples have been destroyed. But one of the earliest and first capitals was of Menhoood, right there in that area. And there we see the spiritual center. It was dedicated to a spiritual deity called Ptah, Het Ka Ptah. That's where you get the name Egypticus. Thus we get the name Egypt, but our ancestors referred to it as Kemet. Okay, Kemet literally means black, and Kemet is also on the books in stone. Again, Alexandria was the area where the Greeks primarily were at. As you see right there in the Delta. When they came across the Mediterranean, that's where they established that capital right there. As I said, they knew very little about really in Upper Egypt, even though you see that some of the temples, they wanted to be like some of the other Nesus, meaning by being like what? All the Nesus of ancient Kemet, they built onto the temple. Each one that took the throne, they had to build onto the temple to acknowledge the spiritual temple, the spiritual deity of that temple or god of that particular temple. So that's the same thing the Greeks got the builders to build for them during this time. And again, studying from the knowledge that they plundered from the temple, from these ancient scrolls that you see right here referred to as papyruses today, where even paper gets its name. And 300 years of studying this knowledge, of 300 years of these Greeks. In fact, during this time of the Ptolemies, as I said, starting first with Ptolemy I, this was a murderous dynasty. I mean, they were literally killing each other to be on the throne during this time. So we come down to the Cleopatra VII. There were many Cleopatras, first of all. Okay. But the one that we are most familiar with because of the movies and all of that is Cleopatra VII. Now, keep in mind, her father was known as Ptolemy XII. He called himself the Neo-Dionysus. The Neo-Dionysus literally means the new Osiris, which is the Greek name for Asar, all right, for salvation. And Asar was represented salvation and resurrection in the spiritual life. But her father called himself the Neo-Dionysus. And he looked at Cleopatra as the one to take the throne. Now, keep in mind, as I said, that this was a very murderous dynasty. I mean, the Greeks were murdering each other to be on the throne. In fact, Cleopatra, she murdered one of her brothers, all right, to be on the throne. But the story of Cleopatra is that her sister sent away, and also we see of her brother Ptolemy XIII. During this time, they wanted to be on the throne of ancient Kemet and didn't want their sister Cleopatra to be on the throne. And to run through the story real quick, it was during the time when the Romans are on the scene at this particular time period, and when Julius Caesar, who was after one of his generals named Pompey, this is where Cleopatra, excuse me, this is where Cleopatra felt that she could get back on the throne, and snuck herself into the temple, into the palace, and got Julius Caesar back into the royal bedroom and whipped the magic on him. And next thing you know, she's back on the throne.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised, Baba, but you know,
But of course, but Cleopatra, she called herself that. She told Julius Caesar, she said, I'm Isis. That's the Greek name, okay, that our ancestors referred to, as I said. She said, I am Isis. And she told Julius Caesar, your people worship me. Now, not her, but they did worship Aset, who they referred to as Isis. In fact, there's a temple in Rome to this very day, okay, known as the Herculean worship of the goddess Aset in Rome, that they refer to as a Herculean worship of the goddess Isis, that the Romans worshipped her. She said, I am Isis, telling Julius Caesar this. And Julius Caesar took her back to Rome. Not only did he take her back to Rome, but he also builds a statue in Rome, okay, of Cleopatra, saying that she is Isis, and telling the Senate that this is the goddess that we have been worshiping. So you know what they did to him, right? They killed him.
Oh, they got him out. They got him out of here.
They stabbed him. They said, no, we're not going. But, even though they're worshiping, they did worship. In fact, the Romans took her throughout their empire. They took her to Gaul, which is now France. They took her, meaning not Cleopatra, but Isis. Okay, they were calling her then, I said. They took her to Britannia. It's called Britain. Germania is now Germany. This is how you got the Black Madonna there. That Black Madonna all over Europe was a set before the European Western version of Christianity came along. And when Western version of Christianity came along, they just took and she remained black. They just called her the Black Madonna. That Black Madonna was a set. But the point is, this is what Cleopatra told Julius Caesar to cause him to get killed. All right. Now, so now she's worried about if she can still be on the throne. But there's a general named Mark Antony. Okay, that was Julius Caesar's general. And so he is now sent to Egypt by Octavian, because there's a battle going on because of Julius Caesar. After his death, they had to split the power between Octavian and also Mark Antony. Okay, so Mark Antony, he goes to Egypt, and Cleopatra took him into the royal bedroom and hit the magic on him too. And not only did she whip it on him, she whipped it on him so much that when he came out of the royal bedroom, you know what he said? All the blood that the Romans spilled, okay, fighting to take other lands, that's now part of the Roman Empire, I'm going to give that to Cleopatra.
Mm.
Now he whipped something on that boy. So now, of course, Octavian in Rome is mad at this. You mean the blood that the Romans sacrificed, okay, and gave their life to make the empire of Rome, you're going to give this to Cleopatra? This is the area that Mark Antony controlled, okay? You're going to give this to Cleopatra? That started the War of Actium, a Mediterranean war that caused Cleopatra and Mark Antony to lose the war. And the story is he committed suicide, and then he thought she committed suicide, and she came out of hiding and observed his death. And then she figured that, okay, now here comes Octavian. They lost the war, but Octavian's on the way.
Right.
And Octavian's on the way, and now here he comes. And now she's going to whip that magic on Octavian. But there's a problem, because Octavian comes in as a flaming homosexual. All the Nehru's are not going to help that. Okay. So Octavian comes in as a flaming homosexual. So she realized her power is not going to work with that. All right. But she now realizes that her sister named Asinawe, who Julius Caesar paraded through the streets of Rome and tormented in a cage and so forth. And she also realized that Octavian may do that to her. All right. Which he was going to do, because that was like a trophy. He didn't want to kill her. Okay. Before he killed her, he liked to parade her through the streets of Rome and all that kind of thing. So she decides to take her life. But this is where now Octavian changes his name from Octavian to Augustus Caesar. Why Augustus Caesar? First, his name was Octavian because of the month of October. He named himself after the month of October, supposedly when he was born. Now, Augustus Caesar, because it was the month of August, okay, 30 BCE, that he defeated ancient Egypt and Cleopatra and Mark Antony. And that became the end of ancient Egypt at this time. But what happened is because of what Cleopatra did in terms of calling herself Isis, okay, this is when they knew that they had to formulate a new religion. And they had to study the spiritual systems of ancient Kemet. Because again, when Octavian is realizing now that Isis, who called herself, and here is our group, she's one of the places where she's carved at in the back of the temple of Danda is referred to the area of Dandara, but this is the temple of the Neter Het Heru, okay, dedicated to Heru, the spiritual goddess at this time. And she's carved on this temple with her son, Octavian. Now here's Aset, where she's personifying herself as Aset, okay, who the Greeks refer to as Isis, right here. And this is what infuriated Octavian, and they knew that they had to formulate a new religion because of this error right here. And this is where Aset now becomes the Black Madonna that we see the Romans who took the Black Madonna, took Aset throughout the Roman Empire. So in the Notre Dame that you see that Black Madonna, who they carry out of the holy shrine of the Notre Dame, just like they do in ancient Kemet, where it was a set where she was taken out of her holies of holies called the Ankh Manu. But because Cleopatra was saying she is Isis, this is where Augustus Caesar had to formulate, and down where it came all the way up to the time period of the Byzantine Romans with Constantine, where they formulated Western version of Christianity based off of the spiritual system of ancient Kemet that was corrupted by the Greeks and the Romans. This is her son Octavian, who was also the son of Julius Caesar during this time. A Caesarian, not Octavian, Caesarian, excuse me. This is Caesarian. This is Julius Caesar's son. All right here, it's carved on the temple. Now, some say that Augustus Octavian or Augustus Caesar killed him, but nobody does know. After Cleopatra's death, the history of we see Caesarian is lost. But now we come to this. Okay. So you have, were the ancient Egyptians black or white? All right. So keep in mind, as I said from the beginning, when the army comes in, they did not bring their wives. When the Greeks came in, they did not bring their wives. So again, when you have an army that comes in, what are they going to do? You have the rape of the women. You have miscegenation that takes place. You're not going to have all these Greeks army will come into Egypt and not cohabitate with the Kemetic women in Egypt. And
No.
where Europeans are trying to say that she was all white and so forth. But also keep in mind that when we look at Sally Hemings, if you anything, Cleopatra was like Sally Hemings. All right. Jefferson, who raped, who was a pedophile, who raped Sally Hemings. Well, we can see that with Cleopatra, who was in the bed with Julius Caesar and also with Mark Antony. And my view is we shouldn't get stuck at this era. But this is all we know. But the point is, was she black or white? As I said, one drop of black blood makes you black. That's always been the case in America. So there's no way she's going to be all Greek when the Greek army came in and was there for 300 years. Now, they just made a new movie, History Channel, of course, and they made this Cleopatra right here. They couldn't stomach the sister from England who played Cleopatra, and they came up with this one right here. Now, so what we want to do, they're trying to make it look as though that we as Africans in the States are making all the issue about Cleopatra being black. And they call it Afrocentrism, trying to make Cleopatra black. This went out all over the world. Okay. Now let's see their own documentaries. I want to, and hopefully this comes up okay. This is one of their own documentaries. So let's deal with this for a minute. Let me know if you can hear it.
I can hear it, Bob. I can hear it and see it.
And age of the skeleton at the time of death, and the fact it belonged to someone of high birth, point to one thing. Experts are now convinced that this skeleton is the first forensic evidence of Cleopatra's family ever found. Until recently, Cleopatra's dynasty was thought to be Greek, European, Caucasian. But some scholars now believe Cleopatra and her siblings had African blood. Could the answer be in this skull?
The distance from the forehead to the back of the skull is long in relation to the overall height of the cranium. And that's something that you see quite frequently in certain populations, one of which is ancient Egyptians. Another would be Black African groups will also show that characteristic.
Our revelation backs up the controversial theory that the princess, and therefore her sister Cleopatra, also had African blood.
Okay, I hope that was loud enough.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely loud enough,
So,
Bob.
this is the Newsweek magazine that I kept. It's on here, September 23rd, 1991. Okay. And what do they have on the cover? Afrocentrism was Cleopatra black, facts or fantasies. A debate rages over what to teach our kids about their roots. And they have her with a red, black, and green Africa earring on. Okay. And at this time, when this came out, as I said then, as I still say now, is that why are they just dealing with Cleopatra? Why did they put her on the cover? There were many African queens before Cleopatra, as Mary Raw in her presentations, that she gets deep into a lot of the African Kemetic queens, like of the 6 dynasties. We're looking at Nitocris, okay? That's the Greek name for Menkaure Nitocris. And also there were others, queens like Sobek Neferu of the 12th dynastic period. We're talking about this is over 4,000 years ago. And then, of course, Queen Hatshepsut, okay, over 3,000 years ago. There are many queens that we can see that were on the throne long before Cleopatra. And keep in mind, this is a usurper's throne at this time. All right. Keep in mind, Kemet was already conquered during this time. And the last Kemetic ruler of Kemet was not Cleopatra, it was Nectanebo II, during the 30th dynasty during this time period. And after that, the Greeks came in to fight the Persians. But again, like I said before, why didn't they put Utmost Nefertari on the cover? She's always clearly shown as a melanated sister, as we see right here. 1,500 years BCE, 1,500 years before Cleopatra, or 1,500 years BCE, or before the Christian era, over 3,500 years ago, whereas Cleopatra VII is around 52 BCE. So that's the point in the argument that I have had, even back then, where many, some African scholars lock in on Cleopatra, like I said before, but even through Europeans, as I just showed the documentary, and showing through the DNA evidence, clearly showed that she had African blood. Being on the African continent, right there at the fallopian tube of the Nile, and then she's going to be all white. Okay, I mean, that's crazy within itself. But my argument is that we need to know about the Sirius sisters long before Cleopatra. Okay, we need to know about most. Did I drop out again?
No, you're good to go, Baba.
Okay, good. Okay. So again, we see Utmost Nefertari around 1,500 years BCE. And here we see, again, this is Utmost Nefertari here. Again, I'm showing her again during this time. And we see that she's on the throne. And keep in mind, this is during the time that the invasions were coming in from the north during her time, known as the Hyksos. And she co-reigned with her husband, okay, and that is Neb-Petiraw Utmost I. Clearly, we can see her as a beautiful melanated sister that we see right here. So again, let's make a movie about her. Put her on the cover. All right. How can they argue about that she is lily white when they always showed Utmost Nefertari clearly as very melanated? Also, we see about our Kandake sisters who fought the Romans. Okay, like a minute. Excuse me, Amadaye, who also fought the Romans during this time. In fact, even defeated, okay, Augustus Caesar during their time. And these are the Kandakes. In fact, we know that the Kandakes are also in the Bible as Candace. All right. So when you read Candace in the Bible, they're actually referring to as Kandakes that we see right here. So again, this is a lot of great history long before, or even though they're after Cleopatra, but this is a time period that we can show a movie about how this African queen was not in the bed with them, but she was actually on the battlefield fighting Romans. As I said before, that Nefertari, Utmost Nefertari, even though 1,500 years BCE before Cleopatra. But as these Romans came in, this is in the back of the temple of Amenhotep Risut, rather, that's known as Luxor today. And the Byzantine Romans at this time, this is that arch that you see there. That is a basilica, a Roman basilica that we see here. But as during this time, if we look closely, the plaster, can you see that plaster?
Yes.
Okay, that's the plaster over Amenhotep III of the 18th dynasty. Right? If you look to the right, you can see part of, let me see if I can use the little, this is Amenhotep III right here.
Yeah, we can see it, Bible. We can see it nice and clear because I don't want to hit any. Okay.
The Romans plastered over this, okay, plastering him up at this time. These are the Byzantine Romans who are establishing the Western version of Christianity. And why are they covering him up? Because this is all down through the dynastic period of Kemet, starting with Aset, who gave the first holy birth and immaculate conception. And we know that holy birth and immaculate conception, her son is Haru. And down through the dynastic period, all the Nisus who took the throne were born of a holy birth and immaculate conception that we see. Even we see Amenhotep III was born of immaculate conception from his mother, Maat.msu. So the Romans, okay, establishing it, to keep in mind with Augustus Caesar, after the conquest of Kemet, after defeating Cleopatra and Mark Antony, they want to now change, corrupt the whole spiritual system and the formulation and the making a Western version of Christianity. So they want to now take those ideas of holy birth, ideas of resurrection, the ideas of salvation from ancient Kemet. So this is where they plastered over Amenhotep III. And these are their faces that you see right here at this time. And now we see today they're bringing out these faces and repainting them, and some for future generations to think that this was a Greco-Roman civilization. And these are the faces that you see right here. During the time of Amenhotep III of the 18th dynasty, there were no Greeks yet. They were not on the scene during this time of the 18th dynasty over 3,000 years ago. This is at the end of the dynastic period when the Greeks came into Kemet, as we see their faces right here, the Byzantine Romans. So this is where they were taking from Kemet, corrupting the spiritual system. And that's a whole another lecture that I have on the African origin of Christianity. But I'm just showing this era to show that this was a time period where Augustus Caesar, that led into Constantine, that formulated this whole idea of what is known as Western version of Christianity, all right, which is a whole nother lecture. But it started with the death of Cleopatra and Mark Antony after the conquest during this time period. So again, other African queens, as many of us know, Queen T. In fact, she looks just like my mother. And again, now does she look like she's white? So again, by white supremacy are trying to make us look at the people as though they are something else. When we clearly see, look at ourselves over here, and many brothers and sisters are looking at ourselves. And then when we're looking at the phenotypes of the Kemetic Africans of the Nile Valley, we can see our uncles, we can see our fathers, we can see our mothers, we can see our relatives. Okay, when we look at these images, as I said, she looks just like my mother, Queen T, but yet, so again, if it's so loved, why do we see Queen T like this now on the monuments? Look at her face. Look at her face smashed out. It was a fake. Now, this is a queen of the 18th dynasty. This is the Neter Hemp, or divine wife of Amenhotep III, as we see her right here. And now we see her. This is her son, okay, Neferkepa Ruwawa and Ra, that we all know that he changed his name to Akhenaten of the 18th dynasty. But yet we see the destruction of her face right here on the monuments. And that still continues this very day, when we see how faces are chiseled out, and even in some cases, nose and lips, or when you go to the museums, or even on display. So when you see the phenotypes of these nose and lips, these are on display in the museum, in the Metropolitan Museum, that we see right here. And the last time I saw this piece was in 1985. It was in the Cairo Museum. It's no longer there now. As Dr. Ben has always said, there's no one prototype that defines an African facial characteristic. That means we have all types of facial characteristics. We have wide nose, we have thin nose, we have thick lips, we have thin lips. The phenotypes, even in my own family, that we see all the variations of shades of black and variations of the phenotypes of African people that we see right here. Clearly, you can see they're African people, but the European Egyptologists, okay, in cahoots, who are over there ransacking tombs, continuing doing what they have been doing from the time that they came in during the time of Napoleon. All right. When you see the stolen treasures, where are they? All right. They're not in African-American museums. They're in European museums. When you see the plunder that has taken place, when we look at Kemet, we don't look just at Kemet. We look at the whole African continent. Behind me, you don't see just Kemet on the wall. Do you see what's on the back on my wall, sister?
Oh, yeah, I see what you got. You got the whole continent, Bible, on your wall.
This is what we're talking about. Okay, the whole continent. But see, we can, but what we're saying is we can show without question that many things that the Europeans brought through, whether it's Western academia, Western religion, okay, was plagiarized from Kemetic Africans, okay, of the Nile Valley, who are melanated people. Melanin means black, means color. And to this very day in Upper Egypt, majority of people are melanated, as well as in many of the people in Lower Egypt. But of course, you're going to have fewer in Lower Egypt because that's where the invasions came in at. So you have the time period of the Hyksos invasions that came in, who were there for 200 years in the Delta. You have the time period of the Assyrians, the Persians, and many others even between that time period. You have the time period of the Greeks and the Romans that we talked about, the Ottoman Turks, okay, the Arabs who came in 641 AD. So again, and now you're going to make it a white civilization. See. In fact, when we look at the Nile itself, where people just stayed in one part of the Nile, No, the Nile is the fallopian tube, as I showed in the last presentation with Kevin Hart, sister. For those who want to go back.
Oh, I remember, Baba. I remember.
Yeah, I'm mentioning in case of those who want to go back to that particular one I did on your show, Dr. Maat, they can see the what I was showing with the Nile Valley and how Africa gave birth to the world. All right, so Africa gave birth to the world. No white supremacist Egyptologist or European or Egyptian, even in Egypt, okay, can say that Egypt was a white civilization.
No.
So we see that. So that is the that I haven't concluded yet. So so sum this up to show you when people don't know the history. Excuse my cough. When people don't know the history, they can put out magazines and books like this. Greece voted the most creative place in the world by 5,000 years of history. You got the Parthenon sitting up there, and keep in mind there was no Parthenon during the time of Amenhotep. The most select and holy place is called Karnak today, over 4,000 years ago. So even when you look at Egypt and all the information that African scholars, okay, have been bringing forward, like Grandmaster teachers I've talked about, like Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chancellor Williams, and many others, Drusilla Houston Dungy and many others, we are saving Kemet's history. But because of these European Egyptologists who are bringing their white supremacy to Egypt, so they can continue doing what they have been doing, plundering and stealing. We've been revealing where the Greeks got their knowledge from, okay? Where Pythagoras and all the others, that's what we have been doing, and showing that this belongs to Africa. That's where it belongs to. So now one of the things that we have lost, Dr. Maat, is chronology of time, right? We're either locked in some biblical time beginning, or we're locked in European Western time period, locked within a diameter of 2,000 years. And because we don't know the chronology of time, that's why we fight over this Cleopatra thing. Whereas back then, like I said before, had we known about the history, we said, okay, now most Nefertari, as I said before. So they just stole Greece right up here. At best, 800 years BCE. So looking all the way down to the Archaic period, over 5,000 years ago, there was no Greece yet. So to go back to that article right here, by 5,000 years of history, that would be during the time of the Archaic period. Look, they just lied in this magazine. In this book, rather. 5,000 years of history, voted the most creative place in the world. So even if Egypt's looking at this, this is what we have been revealing, and this is the fear of whites and white supremacist Egyptologists. So the Archaic period would be during the time of Nomer, over 5,000 years ago. There was no Greece yet. There was no Greece during the time of the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom. No Greece yet. We're talking about over 4,000 years ago. The New Kingdom, there was no Greece yet. Then you get down to around 800 years BCE. And then you get to Greece. So because they've got a lot of people hoodwinked, bamboozled, knowing that people don't know the chronology of time, what the Kemetic Africans of the Nile Valley have done for thousands of years before Western civilization was even in existence. The fear is that people have an awakening to the fact that all these things that we've been taught in Western academia or in Western religions were literally stolen and corrupted by Europeans. And going back to that story that I told you about the young man who came to the class, and the teacher was putting up all the very Greek philosophers and so forth, and then he put up Imhotep, and that was the end. Because they know that they're not on the scene. Everything that they have done has been through brainwashing the people. The civilization started with European Western civilization. The whole word brainwashing the people that Africa was in barbarism, when in fact Europe was in barbarism. Even during the time of the Romans, when they went up to Germania or to Gaul and to these other places, even in the new movie, it shows them as barbarians. And Greece and Rome got their civilization and their awakening from barbarism from ancient Kemet. So the fact that, as I said, people have been brainwashed to deify Europeans as the beginning of civilization. The fear is the awakening will take place to this chronology of time before Europe was even in existence. And that's been the fear. Even to this very day, where school books are now down here in Texas trying to say that Africans were happy slaves on the plantation.
Oh, yeah, Bobby. They doing that. They doing that in Florida. They doing that in Texas.
Because
that's the new narrative.
How did you make a slave in the first place? When you take away the knowledge of a people, you take away the knowledge of history and the things that are going on, then and keep people ignorant. Not only do you keep people ignorant, but you keep them into white idolatry.
Facts.
Worshiping Europeans or white images.
Facts.
So Dr. Stolen, so as I conclude this, The Stolen Legacy, a powerful book, and Dr. Ben has mentioned that Dr. George Jim James was murdered for writing this book. And that's the horror. That's the horror of the fifth dynasty that's on the cover of his book that he's using right here. Look at Sahara. Look at this African. Look at his face. What European could say that that's a European? Or this is or he's white? Now, this is Black Men of the Now. That's the first book I came in contact with Dr. Ben's book. That was not the original cover. That's the new version of the book. And I'm saying for those who want to know more, get Black Men of the Now by Dr. Ben, who first started going to Egypt way back in 1938. In fact, he's the one that opened up the educational tours returning back to Africa. Also, Dr. Cheikh Diop, The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality. I like to show books for people. There's a lot of first time and new people and young people to start to research. And of course, we got to have Dr. Chance, The Way to the Destruction of Black Civilization.
Okay.
Powerful book. Dr. Clark, The African World Revolution, Africans at the Crossroads. Dr. John Henry Clark. He got some of our warrior scholars on the front of his book that we see there. And then also Dr. Van Sertima, peace be upon all of them. We see his book. He wrote many journals on Africa, Egypt, the Child of Africa. And these are DVDs, Images Shape Our Reality, like these movies are coming out and so forth. So over the years, starting with creating slide presentations and lecturing around the country, and that now outside the country in many places over the years. And now you got the new formats out here, DVDs and so forth, and producing images where brothers and sisters can see from our field research, where we're right there on the spot in many cases and doing the lectures. So this one here is my latest one, The Ingenuity and Spirituality of Africans in Pyramid Building, a very powerful DVD for young people. And because much of what we know now, Dr. Maat, we should have known when we were children. Most of us get into this knowledge when we're adults. And some of us get into the knowledge when we are in middle age.
That's true.
So the best of our time is already up.
That's true.
Fortunately, I did get into this knowledge in my 20s, but I still should have been younger. I should have had this knowledge from the very beginning.
That's right. All of us, Baba.
Conscious, right. Okay.
All of us, Baba.
Exactly. And then we also have our book. All right. So we have the book on the level where it can, for adults and children, and adults can read the book, and we have the images of these great Nisus or kings in the book where brothers and sisters can see the phenotype and see them. All right. Mary Raw and I have this book, The African Builders of Civilization, a Pictorial History of Famous Personalities of Ancient Kemet. Okay. And also The Temple of Amun, The Origin of Religion in God's House on Earth. This is a great DVD that gives you the history of where the religion and ideas, God's house on earth, where did that come from? Okay. And many other spiritual ideas and how many of these things were corrupted in this DVD as well. Mary Ross, she's going to be lecturing on the African goddess, the spiritual foundation of ancient Kemet, when she comes to New York. And so these are just a few. So I'll stop sharing the screen. I can see my face or our face.
And look, Bob, as soon as I told the crowd, I said, let's get 100 people in the virtual seats for Bob. And I said, as soon as
did I hit something wrong again?
No, you didn't do anything wrong, Bob. I was telling the folks, get 100 people in here and I'm going to drop a bomb for you. And it was like, as soon as you clicked off, we're past 100 people. So I want to drop a bomb for you.
I can't see you at all. I can't see anything.
No, you good to go. Don't worry about it, Bob. Let me drop fire! All right, family. All right, family. So you just heard this powerful, powerful lecture, family. And look, I gotta share. I'm going to share my screen, family. So here's the flyer that I wanted to show you at the beginning of the presentation, but I had his slides already kind of in the cut. Family, you see the flyer on the screen. Okay, King Simon Productions and Kemet New Production presents Baba Ashwa and Mama Mary Kwesi on Saturday, September the 23rd from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. They're going to be dealing with the ancient civilizations, all right, and Netflix misinformation about Cleopatra and much, much more.
We're going to get a lot deeper than that. We're going to get a lot deeper than that.
Oh, yeah. I already know, Bob.
I sure was the tail end of the presentation.
I already know, Bob. I already know. You told us earlier that that's kind of like a, that's like a little, I don't want to call it a footnote, but that's just like a little, and so family, be in the building. Okay, ancient civilizations. They're going to be talking about ancient civilizations, Netflix misinformation about Cleopatra and much more. Okay, the address is 958. I hope that I'm pronouncing it right. Halsey Street. That's Halsey Street near Broadway in Brooklyn, New York. So it says right here, text 347-496-1022 for PayPal, Cash App, and Eventbrite links, or go to Linktree right there. Linktree, King Simon, the numerator. All right. So family, make sure that you're in the building. Be there. If you thought tonight was off the chain, I can only imagine how it's going to be on September the 23rd. All right. So family, make sure that you're in the building. Okay. If you're in the DMV area, make sure you head on up to New York. If you're in Philly, right? You're in Philly, you're in Delaware. Make sure that you show up, family, and show out while we have our great master teacher among us. It seems like a lot of us, and I just had this conversation, and shout out to Bob Imhotep, Fatty U of PLM. He and I was having this conversation a couple of weeks ago, Baba, that it seems like, when something happens, when our master teachers transition, now we want to deify them, right? But when they're walking around and they're here, they don't get the support that they should get, And so family, let's support and let's value our master teachers, right? That's why we have access to them. Baba might say, I'm gonna retire tomorrow. And then next, where's the Baba Ashra Kwesi lecture? Can we get him out of retirement? He's like, well, look, I've been doing this for 40 plus years. He might say, I'm tired. Family, be in the building. Let's access him while we can.
Well, I'm sorry, I may have looked a little tired tonight. If I was
Baba. No, Baba, you were powerful as usual.
Yeah, I'm trying to get used to this talk. Yeah, I love talking to people. Technology, I feel like is the spirit. I feel like when I don't have that spirit, it's like a different vibe for me.
No, Baba. I'm telling you, if you felt it, we didn't feel it. You were powerful like you were when I saw you in Baltimore, like you were the other 2 times that you were on this platform. So, Baba, look, do you have any closing words for the listening audience?
Well, I would say that we have to, when you look at many of the Nisus, and I point this out to our group all the time, and one of the most powerful positions that you see the Nisu, he's walking with his left leg forward. And while he's walking with his left leg forward, that's called the Nisi-Msu. And the Nisi-Msu, it symbolizes to trample down evil and then let your heart go forward. There's too many times that we see we're shot down in the street by the Gestapos, okay? And even before the loved ones are even buried, we're out forgiving them for them to do it again and again and again. And so we got to trample down evil. We got to trample down white supremacy for our hearts to go forward. So that's where even where the military gets left, right. All right. So we got to walk in the Nisi-Msu with the left leg forward, trample down evil for our heart to go forward, to know thyself.
Ashe.
Hotel. And I hope can you see me?
Oh yeah, Baba. We see you loud.
Okay, I got a blank screen here. Okay.
It doesn't matter, Baba. Keep talking.
Yes. So that's what I would like to say. And for everybody also to stay in the spirit of Netter, Kemet, Netter, Ankhs, and Nejeb. Everlasting black life, okay, health and stability, and Uja, okay. Also, we must have prosperity coded on all of that.
Ashe. Well, Baba, thank you so much again, for your time, your energy, your wisdom and your work. We appreciate you.
Asante
And
Sana, sister.
we
Thanks for
value
bearing with me through this whole process here.
Oh, no, Baba. You were good to go, Baba. No worries, Baba. Trust me. I'm like you, especially when it comes to like technology. You're like, hold up, how do I do this again? What did I do? And I'm an engineer. That's what I do for a living. And people say, you're an electrical engineer. You having trouble with this phone? Yes, I am. Yes.
Mary Roz, she's the tech whiz.
Absolutely.
I can make the DVDs and put the knowledge out there in that level and deal with the PowerPoints and all that, but I don't spend a lot of time on the Zoom thing.
Yeah, don't worry about it, Baba. Don't worry about it. But Baba, I'm not going to hold you any longer. Baba, get some rest.
And I'm sorry I can't see you, sister. I'm sorry I can't see you. I just see the screen here.
No problem, Baba. No worries.
Okay.
And we appreciate you, and we do see you, so you don't have to worry about it. We do see you.
Okay, great.
And go and get some rest, Baba. Appreciate your time.
Asante Sana, sister.
Asante Sana. Kiribu, peace and love.
Okay.
Hotep. Family. Oh my gosh. Wasn't that an awesome presentation? Family, I'm telling you, make sure you're in the building on September the 23rd. Make sure that you're there, family, right in Brooklyn, New York, to listen to the words, the teachings of our master teacher, Baba Ashra Kwesi, and Mama Ashra Kwesi, but Mama Mary Kwesi. And thank you all for tuning in. I do appreciate that. You could have been anywhere, right? There's so many different platforms, right? On YouTube and so many different platforms. You got someone was telling me about Clubhouse and fan base, right? It's all of these social media platforms. People are doing, chats on Twitter. And so you could have been anywhere, but you chose to be right here with dr.maat and Baba Ashra Kwesi. And for that, I give thanks. So I give thanks every time, my supporters, when you send me comments, I give thanks. When you tune in, I give thanks. When you share the link, I give thanks because, I was raised to know that people do things for you because they want to, right? Because they love you, they want to support you, but they don't have to. No one has to do anything for you. And so that, with that said, I thank all of you who tuned in tonight. All right, family. So look, I may or may not be live. I know I'm not going live on Friday or Saturday, but I'm going to try to go live on Sunday. If I'm not live on Sunday, I'll definitely be live again on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So family, just make sure that you hit your notification, hit the notification bell so that whenever I go live, you're notified. All right, family. And if you don't see me this weekend, I want you to have a blacktastic weekend. All right. Peace and black power.
Let's combat and fight back with MELTREK. The war of the minds, they want control of the masses. And Common Core, they dumb us down in the classes. Without knowledge, we can't gain access. Build with the elders, take notes and write classes. We keep whining on the block, how it's gonna stop? Let's start supporting our own, make their supply drop. We buy stocks, then we buy blocks. Cause we know the truth and we tuned in to Dr. Maya.